When you start a new bash shell, the shell is configured using startup files. There are a number of files that can be used, and the exact ones depend on what type of shell is created. A full discussion of these startup files is beyond the scope of this introductory course, so we are just going to cover some of the highlights. There are actually three different types of shells, but we will only discuss one. The one in which we are interested is the interactive non-login shell. This is the type of shell we have open right now. Since we can execute commands, it is interactive. It isn't a shell that was created as a result of a successful login, so it is a non-login shell. All three types of shells have different startup files. Since we are interested in interactive non-login shells, we will look at the startup file for these shells. The file is named .bashrc and is found in the user's home directory. Files that start with a period are hidden in Linux, so you need to use the -a flag to see it in a file listing. Here it is. Let's open the file and see what's in there. First, we can see that some shell variables are set. These first few are related to command history, which will be covered in a later video. The file also has various configurations for the shell. These modify things like colors and the prompt. As we get further down, you will notice a number of statements that start with alias. An alias is like a keyboard shortcut. If you have commands that you frequently use, you can add an alias to make it easier to use. For example, you can see that there is an alias LL that performs a long listing in a directory. There is also an alias for a utility called grep that enables it to display color in its output. Aliases are defined using the syntax alias name equals value. Note that the value is usually enclosed in single quotes, so the alias uses the entire command, including the options. Aliases are especially useful for commands that could be destructive. For example, users often add an alias for rm that forces them to confirm when deleting files. Let's add it since it isn't in here right now. Alias equals alias del equals rm-rfi for recursive, force, and interactive, meaning that we have to confirm it. Now I can just use the command del to delete a single file or an entire directory. It will ask for confirmation for every file so I don't accidentally delete files I didn't want to. While we are here, let's create another alias we can use for testing. I'd rather use a less destructive alias for a demonstration. I've been using the command clear in these videos to clear the screen. However, that is getting to be too many characters for me to type and I am lazy. I want to create an alias so I can clear the screen just by typing C. Let's add that alias to the file. Alias C equals quote clear close quote. I'm going to save the file and see if we can use it. Notice that it didn't work. That is because although we have added it to the bash rc file, my shell didn't read it yet. If I create a new shell, it should work. Notice that it worked. If we want our original shell to get this alias, we can use the following command: source.bashrc. What this does is rerun all the commands in the .bashrc file in this shell. Now let's see if it works. Now it works. If you use a different shell other than bash, the startup file name will be different. For example, The C shell uses the startup file .cshrc. These startup files for other shells serve the same purpose as the .bashrc file, but since they are for different shells, their syntax may be a little different. Once you get more comfortable with Linux, you will learn what customizations and aliases help you the most.